Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had a half-light quirk and half-dark quirk. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world is not black and white. It is a spectrum of infinite grays, a chaotic blend of shadows and illumination where morality is often lost in the diffusion. But for Izuku Midoriya, the world was violently, painfully binary. It began in a sterile room in Muzurifu General Hospital. The hum of the air conditioning was a low drone, a stark contrast to the high-pitched weeping of Inko Midoriya. The doctor, a man with thick spectacles and a quirk that allowed him to elongate his fingers, sat behind his desk. He looked terrified. It was a rare expression for a pediatric specialist, but then again, he was looking at a 4-year-old boy who was currently defying the laws of physics. Mrs. Midoriya, the doctor said, his voice trembling slightly. Please, can you ask him to stop? Inko dabbed at her eyes, looking down at her son. Izuku sat on the examination table, his legs swinging idly. He wasn't crying. He wasn't smiling. He was staring at his hands with a look of intense, clinical curiosity. His right hand was wreathed in a blinding, white gold aura. It wasn't fire. There was no smoke, no flickering. It was solid photons, a hard light construct that hummed with the sound of a tuning fork striking glass. The air around it shimmied, the heat intense enough to curl the edges of the paper covering the exam table. His left hand was gone. Or rather, it was submerged in a shroud of vantablack darkness that seemed to eat the light from the room. It swirled like ink in water, heavy and viscous. Where the darkness touched the metal edge of the table, frost began to creep across the steel, cracking loudly. Izuku, baby, please, Inko whispered, her voice thick with anxiety. Close your hands. Make it go away. Izuku looked up. His eyes, once a matching forest green, had changed. The right iris was now a piercing, luminous gold that seemed to see through the doctor's skin. The left iris was a dark, bruised violet, almost black, swirling with a heavy mist. It feels heavy, Mom, Izuku said, his voice quiet. He clenched his left fist. The shadows snapped like a whip, knocking a jar of tongue depressors off the counter across the room without physically touching them. And the other one feels loud. It's a compound mutation, the doctor explained, pushing his chair back as far as it would go. A perfect, terrifying split. Your husband breathes fire, correct? And you can attract small objects? Somehow, genetics skipped the telekinesis and thermal generation and went straight to the source concepts. Energy and gravity. Light and dark. The doctor swallowed hard, wiping sweat from his brow. He doesn't just have a quirk, Mrs. Midoriya. He has a cataclysm in his palms. He is a walking equinox. That was the day the word quirkless died in the Midoriya household. But it was replaced by something far heavier. Izuku looked at his hands, the light bleaching the color from his skin, the darkness staining his fingertips. He didn't feel like a superhero. He felt like a battleground. 10 years later, Aldera Junior High was a typical school, filled with the typical noise of adolescence. Students shouted, quirks flared, and lockers slammed. But there was a circle of silence that moved through the hallways, a radius of about 5 feet centered around one student. Izuku Midoriya walked with his head down, clutching his bag strap. He wore thick, rubber-lined gloves, black on the left hand, white on the right. They were custom-made suppressors, designed to insulate heat and contain gravity leaks. Make way for the omen, someone whispered. Don't look him in the eye. I heard if he uses his left side, he can show you how you die. Bullshit. But I heard he gave a kid frostbite in gym class just by tagging him. Izuku ignored them. He had learned to filter the noise. His quirk, Twilight, as the registry called it, came with psychological side effects that were harder to manage than the physical ones. Using the light side required intense focus and logic. Overuse stripped him of empathy, turning him into a cold, calculating machine. It was efficient, but it scared people. Using the dark side required emotion. It fed on fear, anger, and sorrow. Overuse plunged him into a depression so deep it felt like drowning, and it made him aggressive, primal, and terrifying. To function, Izuku had to walk a tightrope. He had to be perfectly gray. Bland. Unassuming. He slid open the door to Class 3A. The noise in the room didn't stop, but the tenor changed. It became tighter. Katsuki Bakugo sat with his feet up on his desk. His eyes, sharp and red, locked onto Izuku the moment he entered. This was not the dynamic of a bully and a victim. In another life, perhaps, where Izuku was powerless, Bakugo would have seen him as a pebble in his path. But in this reality, Bakugo did not see a pebble. He saw a landmine. Bakugo's hands smoked, small pops of nitroglycerin crackling against his palms. He hated Izuku. He hated him with a passion that bordered on obsession. Not because Izuku was weak, but because Izuku was the only person in Aldera who made Bakugo feel threatened. Deku, Bakugo growled. Kaken, Izuku replied evenly, walking to his seat in the back. His voice was monotone. He was running slightly bright today. Too much anxiety this morning had forced him to lean on his logical side to calm down. He felt detached. You look like a corpse today, Bakugo sneered, dropping his feet. Freezing up again? Just tired, Izuku said, sitting down and pulling out a notebook. The cover read Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 13. The edges were charred on one side and frosted on the other. The teacher entered, slamming a stack of papers on the podium. All right, settle down, you Hellraisers. You're all third years now. It's time to think seriously about your futures. The class groaned, but the teacher smiled. I would hand out these career aptitude forms, but who am I kidding? You're all aiming for the hero course, aren't you? The room exploded into cheers. Students activated their quirks, extended fingers, floating objects, minor transformations. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said, waving his hand. But no power usage in school. Get a hold of yourselves. Hey, teach! Bakugo's voice cut through the noise like a gunshot. Don't lump me in with these extras. They'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some D-lister. I'm going for the top. Ah, Bakugo, the teacher nodded. You're aiming for UA High, correct? The class murmured in awe. UA was the gold standard. I aced the mock exams. Bakugo shouted, standing up on his chair. I'm the only one here with the stuff to surpass All Might. I'm going to be the richest, most famous hero of all time, and it starts with me leaving this dump behind. Oh, the teacher said, looking at his clipboard. That's right. Midoriya is also applying to UA. The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't the mocking silence of skepticism. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of fear. Every head turned to the back of the room. Bakugo froze. His shoulders stiffened. Slowly, he turned his head, his eyes wide with a mixture of fury and something that looked suspiciously like panic. Izuku didn't look up from his notebook. He was writing down observations about Kamiri Wood's new binding lacquer. Deku, Bakugo whispered. The nickname, originally meant to mean useless, had twisted over the years. Now Bakugo used it to mean freak. You're actually doing it? Bakugo asked, his voice low and vibrating with danger. Izuku stopped writing. He looked up, his mismatched eyes boring into Bakugo's. The gold eye seemed to glow faintly. It is the only logical course of action, Kaken. UA has the best facilities for quirk regulation training. My scores are within the acceptance threshold. Don't give me that robot logic crap. Bakugo exploded, leaping off his desk. He slammed his hands onto Izuku's desk. Boom! The explosion was contained, but it singed the wood. Izuku didn't flinch. He simply leaned back, a faint shimmer of hard light forming a translucent barrier over his face for a split second before vanishing. You think you can stand in the same ring as me? Bakugo hissed, smoke curling from his palms. You can't even control your own damn body. You'll kill someone, you half-and-half freak. You're not a hero, you're a ticking bomb. We are all ticking bombs, Kaken, Izuku said softly. The temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Shadows under the desk seemed to stretch toward Izuku's feet. Some of us just have shorter fuses. Bakugo grit his teeth, veins popping in his forehead. He wanted to hit him. He wanted to blow that calm, eerie expression off Izuku's face. But he knew deep down that if he truly engaged, Izuku would fight back. And unlike the other extras, Izuku could hurt him. Sit down, Bakugo. The teacher shouted, finally intervening, though he looked nervous too. Bakugo scoffed, kicking Izuku's desk one last time before storming back to his seat. Just wait until the practical, Deku. I'll crush you. The end of the day came with the golden hue of late afternoon. Izuku packed his bags slowly. He felt drained. The brief flare of his dark side during the confrontation with Bakugo had left him feeling heavy, a phantom weight pressing on his shoulders. He needed to balance it out. Maybe he would sit in the park and read a textbook. Something dense and logical to bring the light back up. He walked out of the classroom, checking his phone for hero news. He was so absorbed that he didn't notice the ambush until the notebook was snatched from his hands. We're not done, Bakugo said. He stood in the hallway with two of his lackeys. He held the notebook up. Hero analysis? You're still taking notes like a fanba? Give it back, Kaken, Izuku said. You know what your problem is? Bakugo placed the notebook between his palms. You don't know your place. Pop crackle. He detonated a small explosion, burning the spine of the book. He tossed it out the open window. It fluttered down into the koi pond below. Izuku watched it fall. He felt a spike of irritation, cold, sharp, and dangerous. The shadows in the hallway flickered. Don't apply to Yue, Bakugo warned, stepping close. I mean it. I'm not going to share the spotlight with a monster. Izuku looked at Bakugo. He saw the insecurity masked by rage. If you want to be a hero so bad, Bakugo sneered, leaning in, there's actually a quick way. Why don't you take a swan dive off the roof? Maybe in your next life, you'll be born with a quirk that doesn't make everyone want to run away from you. The lackeys snickered, but they looked uneasy. That was too far, even for Bakugo. Izuku stood very still. The air around him began to distort. Heat radiated from his right side, cold mist drifted from his left. Are you done? Izuku asked. His voice sounded like two people speaking at once, one melodic and echoing, one raspy and deep. Bakugo flinched. He took a step back, his instincts screaming at him. Izuku closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and clamped down on his power. The distortion vanished. He walked past Bakugo, his shoulder checking the blond boy's arm. See you at the exams, Katsuki, Izuku said, using his given name for the first time in years. He walked away, leaving Bakugo standing in the hallway, shaking with impotent rage. Izuku fished his notebook out of the pond. Stupid, he muttered to himself. Fish food. That's all it is now. He walked home, taking the long route through the underpass. He needed the dark. The shadows of the tunnel felt comforting to his left side, soothing the itch beneath his skin. He thought about what Bakugo said. Monster. Was he? He remembered the time he was 7, and he accidentally blinded a kid on the playground with a flashbang because he got too excited. He remembered when he was 10, and he had a nightmare that caused the shadows in his bedroom to strangle his all-might plushie until it popped. I just want to save people, Izuku whispered to the damp concrete walls. Why does it have to be so complicated? Slosh. The sound came from the manhole cover behind him. Izuku spun around, his right eye flaring gold. A massive, fluid shape erupted from the sewer. It was made of sludge, reeking of sewage and rot. Two manic eyes floated in the muck. A medium-sized invisibility cloak, the villain hissed, his voice wet and gurgling. Perfect. Izuku didn't scream. He analyzed. Fluid body. No solid grasping points. Physical attacks ineffective. Don't worry, kid, the sludge lunged. I'm just going to take over your body. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Izuku raised his right hand. Back off. He fired a concentrated beam of light, a lumina lance. It struck the villain's center mass. Hiss! The sludge boiled instantly where the light touched it. The villain shrieked in pain, but the beam passed right through, cauterizing a hole that immediately refilled with slime. Hot! Hot! You little brat! The villain swiped a massive tendril. Izuku tried to dodge, intending to use a gravity push to create distance, but he wasn't fast enough. The sludge slammed into him, engulfing his mouth and nose. It was cold. It tasted like oil and death. Izuku gagged, clawing at the liquid. He couldn't breathe. Panic flared. Panic feeds the dark. His left hand began to glow with violet energy. The shadows in the tunnel surged, wrapping around the sludge like black vines. What the? The villain struggled. What is this? It's heavy. Izuku tried to crush him. He poured his fear into the shadows, commanding them to squeeze. But he was suffocating. His vision was spotting. To control the darkness, he needed intent, but his brain was starving for oxygen. The shadows flailed wildly, tearing chunks of concrete from the walls but failing to dislodge the villain. I'm going to die, Izuku thought. His logic faded. His fear spiked. The tunnel grew pitch black. No. Not yet. I can't. Izuku's thought was cut off as the slime forced its way down his throat. Suddenly, the manhole cover clattered loudly. Have no fear. The voice boomed like thunder, shaking the very foundations of the tunnel. Why? Because I am here. A figure blocked the exit of the tunnel. Tall, muscular, radiating an aura of pure, unadulterated justice. All Might. The villain froze. All Might? You chased me all this way? All Might didn't waste time with banter. He pulled back a fist. The air pressure alone pushed the sludge back. Texas. Smash! The punch didn't even touch the villain. The wind pressure generated by the blow was like a hurricane. The sludge was blown apart, splattering against the tunnel walls. Izuku was released, gasping for air, falling to his knees. He coughed violently, his lungs burning. He looked up, his vision blurry. All Might stood there, steam rising from his body. He was gathering the scattered pieces of the villain into 2 empty soda bottles. Are you all right, young man? All Might asked, flashing his signature grin. I apologize for getting you caught up in my justice ing. Usually, I am more careful keeping the bad guys contained. Izuku stared. It was him. The symbol of peace. The man who smiled no matter how dark the world got. All Might, Izuku wheezed. He scrambled to his feet, ignoring the trembling in his legs. Ah, you saved me. Indeed. And now, I must get this fellow to the police. All Might patted his pocket where the bottles were stowed. Stand back. I'm taking off. Wait. Izuku stepped forward. He had to know. He had to ask the question that had plagued him since he was 4. I have to ask you something. All Might crouched, preparing to jump. No time. Danger calls. Izuku didn't think. He acted. As All Might launched himself into the sky, Izuku grabbed onto the hero's leg. Hey! What are you doing? Let go! I love my fans, but this is excessive. If I let go now, I'll die. Izuku screamed, the wind whipping his face. Ah. Good point. They landed on a rooftop a few minutes later. Izuku collapsed, his heart hammering against his ribs. That was reckless. All Might scolded. Now I really must go. Bang on the door, someone will let you in. Wait. Izuku yelled, scrambling up. Please. Just one question. All Might paused. He looked back. Steam was pouring off his body in thick waves. Izuku clenched his fists. My quirk, it's dangerous. One half burns, the other destroys. People say it's a villain's power. They say I'm a ticking bomb. He looked up, his eyes desperate. All Might, can someone with a power that hurts people, can a boy who is half monster still be a hero like you? Silence. The steam around All Might thickened. Then, with a wet cough, the muscular figure imploded. Izuku gasped. Where the symbol of peace had stood, there was now a skeletal, emaciated man with hollow eyes and sharp angles. He spat blood onto the rooftop. All Might? Izuku shrieked. You deflated. I am All Might, the man rasped, wiping his mouth. He lifted his shirt, revealing a horrific, spiderweb scar that covered half his torso. You know how guys flex at the pool to look big. I do that, but for hero work. Izuku stared at the wound. It was old, ugly, and brutal. 5 years ago, All Might said, sitting heavily on a vent. A villain did this. Took half my respiratory organs and my stomach. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. Toxic chainsaw? Izuku asked, his fanboy brain engaging automatically. No, All Might's eyes darkened. Someone much stronger. Someone, from the dark. He looked at Izuku. You asked if a monster can be a hero. All Might sighed. Pros are always risking their lives. But power is a tricky thing. I have seen quirks that are meant for destruction. I have seen men consumed by their own abilities. He looked at Izuku's hands. That darkness you have. I felt it in the tunnel. It felt cold. Ancient. Izuku flinched. I tried to control it. Trying isn't enough when lives are on the line, All Might said sternly. If you lose control, innocent people die. If your power is fundamentally volatile, then honestly? No. Izuku felt like he had been punched in the gut. You can't be a hero simply because you have power, All Might continued. Police officers are heroes. Firefighters are heroes. They save people without needing to be symbols. If your power is a burden, perhaps it is better not to force it upon the world. All Might stood up and walked toward the door. It's good to dream, kid. But you need to be realistic. A hero brings peace. If your existence brings fear, then you are fighting a losing battle. The door clicked shut. Izuku stood alone on the roof. The wind howled. Realistic, he whispered. He looked at his left hand. The darkness swirled sluggishly, reacting to his despair. It crept up his wrist, cold and comforting. Maybe Kaken was right, he said. The gold in his right eye dimmed. The violet in his left eye deepened. Maybe I am just a villain in waiting. An explosion rocked the city. Izuku looked up. A column of black smoke was rising from the shopping district a few blocks away. A villain attack. His feet moved before his brain did. Why am I running? He thought. All Might just told me to give up, but he kept running. He needed to see. Maybe to remind himself of what he couldn't be. When he arrived at the scene, it was chaos. The alleyway was an inferno. The sludge villain, the one All Might had captured, was loose. I made him drop the bottles, Izuku realized with horror. When I grabbed his leg. This is my fault. The heroes were standing around, helpless. Death Arms was punching the sludge and getting stuck. Kamui Woods couldn't get close because of the fire. It's no use. Death Arms shouted. I can't grab him. We have to wait for someone with a suitable quirk. Where is All Might? Someone in the crowd yelled. Izuku stood at the back of the crowd, trembling. He had caused this. Because he was selfish. Because he wanted validation. Then, he saw it. Through the flames and the muck, a pair of eyes looked out. Terror-filled, red eyes. Bakugo was trapped inside the sludge. The villain was trying to force his way into Bakugo's body, using the explosions to keep the heroes at bay. Bakugo couldn't breathe. He was thrashing, his explosions growing weaker. He looked small. Izuku's mind went blank. The logic of his right side vanished. The fear of his left side evaporated. There was only one thought. Save him. Izuku sprinted past the police barricade. Hey! Kid! Get back! Death Arms yelled. Izuku didn't hear him. He charged into the fire. The heat was intense, but his right side absorbed it, feeding on the ambient photons of the flames. Deku? Bakugo choked out, seeing the green-haired boy running toward him. Let him go! Izuku screamed. He didn't have a plan. He just had instinct. He threw his school bag at the villain's eye. It hit with a wet smack, causing the sludge to flinch. You again? The villain roared. Izuku slid to a halt 5 feet from the villain. He raised both hands. I said, Izuku's voice dropped an octave, vibrating with power. Let him go. He slammed his hands together. Equinox. He triggered both quirks simultaneously. It was agonizing. The sensation of burning alive and freezing to death clashed in his chest. From his right hand, a flash bang of pure luminosity erupted, blinding the villain. From his left hand, gravity inverted. The flames in the alleyway didn't go out. They were pushed down. The shadows of the buildings elongated, shooting forward like spears. They pierced the sludge, not cutting it, but seizing it. Get out! Izuku yelled to Bakugo. He grabbed the air with his left claw hand. The shadows obeyed. They ripped the sludge away from Bakugo's face, holding the liquid back with the force of a hydraulic press. Bakugo gasped, sucking in air. Why are you here? Izuku stood amidst the chaos. His right side was glowing so bright it was hard to look at, shedding particles of light like dandruff. His left side was a void, his arm completely encased in shadow matter that dripped onto the pavement, cracking the asphalt. He looked terrifying. A demon of light and dark. My legs moved on their own. Izuku shouted, his voice distorted. I couldn't just watch you die. The villain recovered from the blindness. I'll kill you. I'll take that power too. A massive wave of sludge crashed down. Izuku didn't have the strength to block it. He was redlining. His vision blurred. I'm sorry, Mom, he thought. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Izuku's shoulder. A hand that felt firm and safe. I really am pathetic, a deep voice boomed. Izuku looked up. All Might stood there, in his muscle form, blood trickling from his mouth but smiling fiercely. I admonish you for your recklessness, yet here I am, inspired by it. All Might shouted. He pulled back his fist, blocking the sludge with his own body. Detroit. Smash! The punch changed the weather. The updraft created a tornado that sucked the flames, the sludge, and the clouds into the sky. Rain began to fall almost instantly. The villain was scattered to the winds. Izuku fell backward, his quirk deactivating. The exhaustion hit him like a truck. He shivered violently, frost covering his left arm, while sweat poured down his right side. Bakugo sat on the ground, staring at Izuku with wide, uncomprehending eyes. The scolding was brutal. The pro-heroes surrounded Izuku. Kamui Woods and Death Arms were furious. Are you insane? Death Arms yelled. You could have gotten yourself killed. And that quirk, what the hell was that? You nearly brought the building down with those shadows. You're a civilian. You can't just use power like that. Meanwhile, they were praising Bakugo. You were amazing, kid. That resistance. That quirk is flashy. You'll be a great sidekick one day. Bakugo didn't answer them. He just stared at the ground. Izuku took the scolding in silence. He felt numb. They're right, he thought. I just made things messy. I'm too volatile. As the crowd dispersed and the police took statements, Izuku began the long walk home. The sun had set. The streetlights flickered as he walked under them, a side effect of his electromagnetic aura when he was stressed. Deku! Izuku stopped. He turned around. Bakugo came running up the street, panting. He stopped a few yards away. He looked furious, but also shaken. I didn't ask for your help. Bakugo yelled. And you didn't save me. I was fine. Don't look down on me, you half-and-half bastard. I don't owe you anything. He spun on his heel and stomped away. Izuku watched him go. A small, sad smile touched his lips. You're welcome, Kaken. He turned back to the path. I am here. All Might burst out from around a corner, sliding to a halt in a dramatic pose. All Might? Izuku blinked. Why are you here? You were surrounded by reporters. All Might coughed, puffing into his skeletal form. I shook them off. He walked closer to Izuku. The playfulness was gone from his face. He looked serious. Young Midoriya, All Might said. I need to apologize. And I need to correct myself. Izuku stood straighter. On that roof, I told you that you couldn't be a hero. I judged you based on the nature of your power. I saw the darkness in your left hand and I remembered old enemies. All Might clenched his fist over his heart. But in that alleyway, while the pros stood around making excuses, you ran in. A timid, quirkless, well, not quirkless, but untrained boy. You were the only one who acted. Izuku's eyes welled up. You said your body moved on its own. That is the fundamental trait of every top hero. Before they think they move, All Might looked Izuku in the eyes. You have a terrible power, Izuku Midoriya. It is a power that could easily destroy. It is a power of extremes. But today, you used it to preserve life. You balanced the scales. All Might extended a hand. It will be hard. People will fear you. The darkness will try to consume you, and the light will try to burn you hollow. But if you can master that duality, if you can hold the center, tears spilled down Izuku's cheeks. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. You can be a hero. The words washed over him, warmer than his light, deeper than his darkness. All Might smiled. But we have a lot of work to do. Because frankly, kid, your form is terrible and you almost gave yourself heat stroke. I have a proposal for you. How would you like to inherit my power to help balance out yours? Izuku looked up, snot dripping from his nose, eyes wide. Huh! All Might laughed. It's a long story. But I think you're the perfect vessel. With my power acting as a core, maybe, just maybe, we can stabilize that chaos inside you. What do you say? Izuku looked at his hands. The right one, capable of blinding brilliance. The left one, capable of crushing depths. And now, an offer of the greatest power in the world. He wiped his eyes. He stood up. I'll do it, Izuku said. The street lamp above them stopped flickering and shone with a steady, clear light. The equinox had begun. The street lamp above them buzzed, a dying insect trapped in glass. Under its flickering glow, the pact was sealed, but the silence that followed was heavy, filled not with triumph, but with the terrifying calculus of what had just been proposed. Izuku Midoriya stood on the sidewalk, his school uniform tattered, smelling of ozone and sewage. He looked at his hands, the left one still trembling with the residual cold of the void, the right one radiating a faint, feverish heat. Inherit your power? Izuku repeated, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. All Might stood in his emaciated form, a skeletal figure drowning in oversized clothes. He wiped a streak of blood from his chin with a handkerchief that looked like it had seen too much use. It sounds like a comic book plot, doesn't it? All Might rasped, a ghost of his booming laugh rattling in his chest. But it is the reality of my existence. The tabloids guess at my quirk, super strength, boost, gravity control? No. My power is a torch, passed down from generation to generation. All Might stepped closer, his sunken eyes serious. It is called one for all. One for all, Izuku whispered. He looked at the hero, his analytical mind already racing, trying to categorize the data, but his emotional side was stuck in sheer disbelief. But why? You said it yourself. My quirk is volatile. It's dangerous. Why would you give more power to someone who can barely keep his own from tearing him apart? All Might sighed, sitting down on the guardrail of the sidewalk. He looked old. Older than the symbol of peace had any right to be, because power is not the problem, young Midoriya. The heart is. All Might gestured to Izuku's chest. I have met heroes with perfect, angelic quirks who possess hearts of coal. I have met villains with powers that could heal the world, but they used them to break it. Today, amidst the flames and the fear, you were the only one who moved. You didn't think about the danger to yourself. You didn't think about the chaotic nature of your biology. You thought only of saving that boy. All Might leaned forward. However, you are correct to be worried. This isn't just a gift. It is a burden. And in your case, it is a risk. A risk? My power is a stockpile, All Might explained. It stockpiles raw power. Physical strength. Agility. Force. If I were to give it to you right now, in your current state? All Might looked Izuku up and down, assessing his slender frame and the unstable aura that seemed to cling to his skin. Your limbs would explode. And not metaphorically. Your body is already a war zone between light and dark. Adding one for all would be like dropping a nuclear reactor into a volcano. Izuku swallowed hard. So, I can't take it. Not yet, All Might said firmly. You need a vessel sturdy enough to hold it. You need to forge your body to withstand the pressure. But more importantly, young Midoriya, you need to create a buffer. All Might stood up, pointing a bony finger at Izuku's face. Your light bleaches your emotions. Your darkness amplifies your fear and aggression. If one for all boosts your quirk, which it likely will, those side effects could become permanent. You could lose yourself. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. Izuku looked down at his shoes. The reality of his existence had always been a tightrope walk. Now, All Might was asking him to sprint across it while carrying an elephant. I want to be a hero, Izuku said, his voice quiet but steady. He looked up, his mismatched eyes burning with resolve. I've been told my whole life that my power is a villain's power, that I'm a creeping shadow, that I'm too cold. If this power, if one for all can help me save people with a smile, like you, then I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes. All Might grinned, and for a second, the shadow of the symbol of peace overlaid the skeleton. That's the answer I wanted to hear. But be warned, kid. The next 10 months will be hell. You're not just building muscle. You're building a cage for a monster and a lighthouse for a storm. 2 days later, Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The sun was barely cresting the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and orange. The ocean breeze smelled of salt and rotting garbage. Izuku stood at the top of the stairs overlooking the beach. Or rather, what used to be a beach. Now, it was a graveyard of consumption. Tires, refrigerators, broken cars, and mountains of plastic choked the sand, stretching as far as the eye could see. This, All Might said, standing beside him in a yellow tracksuit, is your training ground. Izuku gaped. All of it? People have been illegally dumping here for years, All Might said, striking a pose. Heroes these days want the glamour. They want the villain fights. They forget that heroism is also service. We are going to return this coastline to its former glory. He turned to Izuku, handing him a stack of papers. I have designed a regiment specifically for your dual nature. This isn't just the aim to pass, American Dream Plan. This is Project Equinox. Izuku looked at the schedule. It was terrifying. Sleep was minimal. Study was intense. And the physical labor was categorized. Morning, dawn heavy lifting using darkness, gravity assists permitted only for safety. Afternoon, peak sun precision work using light, cutting/welding. Evening, endurance running, quirkless. Your quirk is influenced by the environment, All Might explained, tapping the paper. Your light is stronger when the sun is high. Your dark is potent when the shadows lengthen. We are going to force you to use them against their preferred cycles. You will use light when you are tired. You will use dark when you are calm. To build tolerance, Izuku muttered, his eyes scanning the data. Like building immunity to a poison. Exactly. All Might gave a thumbs up. Now, see that refrigerator? Move it to the truck. Izuku took a deep breath. He walked down the stairs, the sand shifting under his red sneakers. He approached a rusted, double-door fridge that was half buried in the sand. He gripped the handles. He pulled. It didn't budge. Use the shadow, young Midoriya! All Might shouted from the promenade. But don't let it use you. Izuku closed his eyes. He reached into the well of his left side. It felt like dipping his hand into a bucket of ice water. The sensation traveled up his arm, seeking his heart. It whispered of lethargy, of the crushing weight of the ocean depths. Move, he commanded. Violet energy flared around his hands. Shadows from under the fridge wiggled like snakes, wrapping around the metal. He felt the gravity shift. The fridge became lighter, as if it were made of styrofoam. Izuku lifted it easily. But as he held it, a sudden spike of irritation hit him. Why is this trash here? Why are people so filthy? They deserve to be punished for ruining the ocean. The thought wasn't his. It was the dark. The fridge crunched. The metal buckled under his grip as the gravity intensified, crushing the appliance into a ball of scrap. Whoa! Easy! All Might yelled. Izuku dropped the mangled metal, gasping. He shook his hand, the frost retreating. I got angry. You let the power dictate the emotion, All Might called out. Try again. And this time, think of something happy. Puppies. Katsudan. Izuku looked at the mountain of trash. 10 months. He was going to die here. Month 3, the bleaching. The summer heat was oppressive. The air shimmered off the piles of scrap metal. Izuku stood atop a pile of tires, pointing his right hand at a rusted support beam of a collapsed gazebo. He needed to cut it into manageable pieces to fit in the truck. Focus, he murmured. His right arm was glowing white-hot. The heat was internal, a fever that lived in his marrow. Light requires clarity, he told himself. Light is a wave. It is a particle. It is math. He visualized the photons aligning. He pushed the chaotic scatter of light into a coherent stream. A laser. ZZZZT. A thin beam of intense, golden light erupted from his index finger. It sliced through the steel beam like butter, leaving edges glowing molten orange. He moved his hand with surgical precision. Cut. 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 Good. Very good. All Might cheered, sitting on a fridge in his muscle form for the fans passing by. Your precision has improved, young Midoriya. Izuku didn't answer. He didn't look up. He moved to the next beam. ZZZZT, young Midoriya? All Might jumped down, landing softly in the sand. He walked over to the boy. Izuku turned. His face was blank. His eyes were wide, blinking rarely. The gold in his right eye had swallowed the iris, making him look like a statue. The structural integrity of this pile is compromised, Izuku said. His voice was flat. Robotic. If I remove this beam, there is a 42% chance of collapse. I must disintegrate the lower bracket first. All Might frowned. He waved a hand in front of Izuku's face. Hey! Earth to Izuku. Izuku didn't react. Inefficient movement. Please step aside, All Might. The sun is at a 75-degree angle. Solar absorption is optimal. All Might grabbed Izuku's shoulders and shook him. Stop! Power down! Izuku stumbled. The light in his hand flickered and died. He blinked rapidly, the gold receding, his green iris returning. He sagged, falling forward into All Might's chest. Whoa, gotcha, All Might said, holding him up. Izuku rubbed his eyes. I couldn't feel my face. I knew you were talking, but it felt like data inputs. Not words. That's the bleaching, All Might said grimly. You overuse the light side. It burns away the chemicals in your brain that regulate empathy and emotion. You turn into a calculator. Izuku looked at his hands. It felt nice. Quiet. No fear. No anxiety. And that is the trap, All Might warned. A hero without a heart is just a machine. And machines can't save people, they can only complete tasks. You need to learn to switch. You can't stay in the light too long. Izuku nodded, but the temptation lingered. To be pure logic? To never feel the sting of Bakugo's insults, or the fear of failure? It was intoxicating. Month 6, the hunger. Autumn brought cooler winds and longer shadows. The dynamic of the training shifted. The beach was half clean now, revealing patches of pristine white sand that looked out of place amidst the remaining grime. Izuku was physically changing. His shoulders were broader, his arms roped with lean muscle. The softness of his face had hardened into determination. But the mental toll was becoming visible. There were dark circles under his eyes that never seemed to fade. He was moving a massive truck engine block. It was heavy, dense, and stubborn. Use the gravity well. All Might instructed. Create a 0-point field. Izuku engaged his left side. The familiar cold rushed in. The shadows coiled. He lifted the engine block, floating it a few inches off the ground. 2 teenagers walked by on the promenade above. They saw Izuku. Check it out, one laughed. It's the creepy kid from Aldera. What's he doing? Playing in the trash? Look at his arm, the other sneered. Whatever quirk that is, it looks gross. Like a villain quirk. Normally Izuku would shrink away. He would hide. But the darkness was active. The darkness heard the threat. The darkness did not like threats. Izuku's head snapped up. His left eye was a swirling vortex of violet mist. A low, guttural growl vibrated in his throat. The shadow holding the engine block lashed out. A tendril of darkness shot toward the teenagers, moving faster than a whip. It cracked the concrete railing right in front of their faces. Get lost, Izuku hissed. His voice was layered, deep, and terrifying. Or I'll drag you under. The teenagers shrieked and ran. Midoriya! All Might was there in an instant, chopping Izuku gently on the back of the neck. Izuku dropped the engine block. It crashed into the sand. He fell to his knees, hyperventilating. I wanted to hurt them, Izuku gasped, tears streaming down his face. I felt hungry. I wanted to terrify them. All Might sat down in the sand next to him. He didn't scold him. He looked out at the ocean. The darkness taps into the primal brain, All Might said softly. Fight or flight. Domination. It's evolutionary. Darkness is where the predators hunt. I'm a monster, Izuku sobbed into his hands. All Might, I can't do this. If you give me one for all, I'll just be a superpowered monster. I almost hurt civilians. You didn't, All Might said. You stopped. You warned them. I missed on purpose. Next time I might not? All Might was silent for a long time. Then, he spoke, his voice heavy with a secret he rarely shared. My master, the one who gave me this power, she told me something once. She said that one for all is a power that cultivates. It takes what is there and makes it more. He turned to Izuku. If you are a monster, one for all will make you the king of monsters. But if you are a protector, it will make you the ultimate shield. But I don't know which one I am, Izuku cried. I have both inside me. Then choose, All Might said simply. Izuku looked up. Biology is not destiny, Izuku. Your genes gave you a gun in one hand and a knife in the other. But you decide where to point them. The darkness makes you angry? Good. Use that anger. Get angry at injustice. Get angry at villains who hurt the weak. The light makes you cold? Use that coldness to stay calm in a crisis when everyone else is panicking. All Might stood up, offering a hand. You are not a boy of light or dark. You are the equinox. You are the balance. And balance requires constant effort. It is not a state of being, it is an action. Izuku took the hand. The grip was firm. Now, All Might said, drop and give me 50 push-ups. We're behind schedule. Month 9, the crosswire. The breakthrough happened on a Tuesday. Izuku was sparring with All Might. Well, sparring was a generous term. All Might was standing still, and Izuku was trying to land a single touch on him. Izuku lunged with a shadow claw. All Might dodged effortlessly. Izuku followed up with a photon flash, trying to blind him. All Might closed his eyes and ducked under the follow-up punch. Too slow. All Might laughed. You're telegraphing. You switch modes like you're changing gears in a car. Clutch in, shift, clutch out. It takes too long. Izuku panted, sweat dripping from his nose. He was exhausted. Whenever he switched from light to dark, there was a lag, a moment where his body had to purge the heat to accept the cold, or vice versa. I can't do them at the same time, Izuku wheezed. They repel each other. It hurts. Don't mix them, All Might advised. Weave them, Izuku frowned. Weave? Don't try to make purple, All Might said, tapping his head. Keep them separate but parallel. Right brain, left brain. Hot hand, cold hand? Izuku closed his eyes. He visualized his blood. The red cells carrying oxygen. The white cells fighting infection. They were in the same veins but did different jobs. He opened his eyes. He charged. He activated his right side. Light. He didn't fire a laser. He used the propulsion. A burst of photons from his feet launched him forward like a rocket. All Might prepared to dodge to the right. Mid-air, Izuku didn't deactivate the light. He kept the heat in his legs, but he ignited the darkness in his left hand. The pain was blinding. It felt like his spine was being twisted. But he held on to the feeling. Right side, logic. Trajectory. Speed. Left side, hunger. Grip. Capture. As he flew past All Might, he lashed out with the shadow. It wasn't a strike, it was a tether. The shadow hooked onto All Might's belt. Using the momentum of the light boost and the anchor of the shadow, Izuku whipped himself around in a tight U-turn, defying physics. He came up behind All Might, his right fist glowing with hard light. Smash! Izuku yelled. He punched All Might in the lower back. It wasn't a hard punch. It bounced off All Might's density harmlessly. But contact was made. Izuku landed in the sand, rolling to a stop. He vomited immediately. His body didn't know if it was overheating or freezing, so it decided to just expel everything. Young Midoriya! All Might rushed over. Izuku wiped his mouth, groaning. He looked up, a wild grin on his face. I hit you. All Might looked at his back, then at the boy. A genuine look of pride crossed his face. You did, All Might whispered. You crazy kid. You actually did it. Month 10, the dawn of the exam. The day of the UA entrance exam arrived with a clear, biting winter sky. Izuku stood at the top of the stairs. He was wearing his middle school uniform, but it fit differently now. The fabric was tight across the chest and arms. Behind him, the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park sparkled. It was gone. All of it. The tires, the fridges, the trucks, the sludge. The sand was pristine, white and soft. The ocean waves lapped at the shore, no longer choked by plastic. It was a miracle. Izuku looked at his hands. They were scarred. Burn marks interlaced with frostbite scars, creating a map of his struggle. They were calloused and rough. They were the hands of a worker. Oh my, All Might arrived. He dropped his grocery bags. He stared at the beach, his jaw unhinged. I only expected you to clear a section, All Might admitted. You cleaned the whole thing? I got into a rhythm, Izuku shrugged, though he was beaming. And the darkness liked eating the trash compactors. All Might laughed, a booming sound that startled the seagulls. He transformed into his muscle form in a puff of smoke. You have exceeded my expectations, Izuku Midoriya. You have proven that you are not just a vessel, but a fortress. All Might reached up and plucked a single strand of blonde hair from his head. And now, the time has come. He held the hair out. Izuku stared at it. This is it? This is it, All Might said solemnly. One for all must be biologically transferred. DNA ingestion is the key. Izuku nodded seriously. He reached for the hair. Eat this. Izuku paused. What? Eat it. Hurry. You'll be late for the exam. I have to eat hair? Izuku gagged. That's disgusting. Do you want the power or not? With a grimace that would haunt his nightmares, Izuku took the hair and swallowed it dry. He coughed, trying to keep it down. It will take a few hours to digest and integrate, All Might explained, slapping Izuku on the back. You probably won't be able to use it during the exam. Which is good. Rely on your own power. Let One for All be the engine that hums in the background, reinforcing your frame. Izuku nodded, feeling a strange warmth settling in his stomach. It wasn't the searing heat of his light side. It was a gentle, thrumming warmth. Like a hearth fire. Thank you, All Might, Izuku bowed deeply. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Now go! Show them what the boy of gray can do. The gates of UA. The UA High School campus was massive. 4 shimmering glass towers connected by walkways, shaped like an H. Izuku walked through the main gate, surrounded by hundreds of other hopefuls. He could hear them whispering, Hey, isn't that the kid with the creepy quirk? The one who froze the fountain at Aldera? Yeah, Midoriya. Stay away from him. Izuku tightened his grip on his bag straps. In the past, those whispers would have made him curl in on himself. They would have fed the darkness, making it lash out. But today, he felt balanced. He closed his eyes for a second. On his right, he felt the calm, cold logic of the light. It analyzed the crowd, the wind's speed, the structural integrity of the gate. On his left, he felt the hungry, swirling passion of the dark. It wanted to win. It wanted to crush the competition. And in the center, deep in his gut, was a new presence. A quiet, golden ember. One for all. It acted as a fulcrum, holding the two sides in check. Out of my way, Deku. Bakugo walked past him, shoving his shoulder. Bakugo didn't look at him. He seemed focused, tense. Izuku didn't stumble. He barely moved. His core was solid. Good luck, Katsuki, Izuku said calmly. Bakugo paused. He looked back, his red eyes narrowing. He noticed the lack of fear. He noticed the scars on Izuku's hands. Don't die, Bakugo grunted, and kept walking. Izuku took a deep breath of the crisp air. I am not a villain, he thought. I am not a monster. I am Izuku Midoriya. He took the first step onto the campus grounds. And I am going to be a hero. As he walked, his shadow stretched out behind him, long and dark, while his face turned toward the sun, bright and illuminated. For the first time in his life, the two didn't fight. They just were. The equinox had arrived at UA High. The written exam was a blur of graphite and silence. For Izuku, it was almost too easy. His right side, the light, craved order. It craved data. When he sat at the desk, tapping his pencil against the paper, he found that if he leaned slightly into the warmth of his right hemisphere, the answers didn't just appear, they aligned. Math problems became simple geometry of light rays. History became a linear timeline of illuminated events. English was just a code to be deciphered. He finished 20 minutes early. He spent the remaining time staring at his hands, heavily gloved in the suppression fabric All Might had provided. Right hand, the fever. Left hand, the frost. Center, the ember. He could feel one for all sitting in the pit of his stomach. It wasn't doing anything yet. It was a heavy, golden knot, silent and dormant. All Might had said it would take hours to digest and days to integrate. For now, it was just a passenger. Izuku looked around the room. He saw Bakugo 3 rows ahead, scribbling furiously, his shoulders hunched with aggression. He saw a boy with glasses moving his hand like a metronome. I am here, Izuku thought, the logic of the light keeping his anxiety at bay. I made it to the starting line, the orientation hall. Everybody say hey. Present Mix's voice was a sonic quirk in itself, booming through the auditorium. The silence that followed was deafening. Izuku sat in the dark, muttering under his breath as Mike explained the robots. The 1-pointer is fast but fragile. The 2-pointer has armor. The 3-pointer. Izuku whispered, his eyes darting back and forth as he sketched in his notebook. Structural weaknesses likely at the neck joints. Sensors are optical, so blinding them is a viable strategy. But the dark side could crush the hydraulics. Excuse me. A hand shot up in the row in front of him. A tall boy with glasses and stiff posture stood up. The spotlight hit him immediately. Sir. The handout clearly lists 4 types of villains, not 3. If this is a misprint, then it is a shameful error for a prestigious school like UA. The boy turned, pointing a stiff finger directly at Izuku. And you? The one with the curly hair and the gloves. You've been muttering this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here to mess around, then you should leave immediately. The auditorium turned to look. Hundreds of eyes. In the past, Izuku would have shrunk. He would have stammered an apology and tried to disappear. But the light was currently dominant. He was in analysis mode. Izuku looked up. His right eye caught the stage lights, reflecting them with an eerie, golden luminescence. His expression was completely flat. I am vocalizing tactical assessments to memorize engagement protocols, Izuku said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room with a strange, resonant clarity. It is an efficiency method. If my preparation disturbs you, I suggest you focus on your own mental fortitude. The boy with glasses blinked, taken aback by the cold, robotic response. The students around them murmured, Whoa, that guy's intense. Did you see his eye? It was glowing. Present Mike cleared his throat. Okay. Examinee 7111 has a point. And thanks for the vibe check, Examinee 2234. Now, let's talk about the 4th villain. As Mike explained the 0-pointer, a gimmick, a hazard to be avoided, Izuku felt a shift. Avoid, his logic side said. Inefficient use of energy. Destroy, his dark side whispered. Show them dominance. He clenched his fists. The duality was already arguing. Battle Center B. The bus ride was quiet. Izuku stood before the massive gates of Battle Center B, a sprawling mock city that looked bigger than his entire neighborhood. He was wearing a simple green tracksuit. The support gloves were black on the left and white on the right, extending up to his elbows. He adjusted them nervously. Hey, it's you. Izuku turned. It was the girl with the brown bob he had almost tripped over at the entrance earlier. She looked nervous. I'm Ochako Uraraka, she said, pumping her fists. You were amazing talking back to that tall guy. You seemed so confident. It wasn't confidence, Izuku said, checking the straps on his shoes. It was calculation. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Well, good luck, Midoriya. Let's do our start. Present Mix's voice screamed from the top of a tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 While the other examinees were processing the sudden start, Izuku was already moving. He didn't run. He flashed. He stomped his right foot. Photon step. A burst of hard light exploded from his soul, launching him forward like he had been shot out of a cannon. He left a trail of shimmering afterimages. What was that? Someone yelled. Izuku was already 50 meters in, rounding the first corner. 3 1-pointer robots rolled out, their sensors glowing red. Target acquired. Eliminate. Izuku didn't slow down. He raised his right hand, pointing his index and middle fingers like a gun. Lumina Lance. ZZZZT, ZZZZT, ZZZZT. 3 beams of concentrated light, thin as needles, shot from his fingertips. They struck the optical sensors of the robots with perfect accuracy. The sensors melted instantly. The robots flailed, blinded. Izuku sprinted past them. As he passed, he let his left hand trail behind him. Darkness. He didn't need a lot. Just a touch. He swiped the air, and 3 tentacles of shadow erupted from the alleyway, wrapping around the robot's ankles. Pull! He yanked his hand. The shadow solidified and jerked violently. The robots, already blind, were tripped. They crashed into each other with a deafening screech of metal, their chassis shattering on impact. 6 points, Izuku counted, his voice monotone. He kept moving. The observation room. In a dark room lined with monitors, the teachers of UA watched. This year's crop is energetic, Midnight purred, watching a boy with engines in his legs kick a robot's head off. There's a lot of raw power, Cementos agreed. But look at this one. Battle Center B. He pointed to a screen. It showed a green blur moving through the streets. Izuku Midoriya, a small creature, Principal Nizu said, sipping tea. Quirk, Twilight. A dual emitter type. Very rare. Very volatile. On the screen, Izuku was surrounded by 5 3-pointers. He's surrounded, Snipe noted. Let's see his close quarters combat. Izuku didn't panic. He stood in the center of the circle. Suddenly, the screen flared white. A flashbang. Solar flare, Nizu noted. Blinding. When the light faded, the robots were crumpling. Izuku was using his left hand now. He wasn't touching them. He was making clawing motions in the air. The shadows of the robots themselves seemed to be rebelling, twisting upward and crushing the metal hulls from the inside out. Brutal, Aizawa murmured from the back of the room. His eyes were narrowed. He switches between surgical precision and brute force destruction. It's effective. But look at his body language. They zoomed in. Izuku wasn't smiling. He wasn't grimacing. His face was a mask. But his movements were becoming jerkier, more aggressive. He's favoring the dark side now, Aizawa noted. The aggression is ramping up. Well, Nizu smiled, his eyes glinting. Let's see how he handles a situation where aggression isn't enough. Release the Leviathan. He pressed a red button. Battle Center B, 8 minutes in. 45, 48, 52 points. Izuku stood atop a pile of scrap metal. He was breathing hard. Steam curled off his right shoulder. Frost dusted his left. The bleaching from the light side was fading, replaced by the creeping influence of the dark. His heart was hammering a war rhythm against his ribs. He felt strong. He felt predatory. More, he whispered. The voice was raspy. I need more targets. He looked down the street. Students were running around, shouting, using their quirks. He saw the boy with glasses, Ida, using his engines to spin-kick a robot. He saw a sparkly boy firing a laser from his navel. Weak, the dark whispered. We could crush them all. Izuku shook his head violently. No. Focus. Targets are robots. Only robots. The ground began to tremble. It started as a vibration in the soles of his shoes, then grew into a rhythmic thumping that shook the glass and the windows. Thump. 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 A shadow fell over the main avenue. A shadow so large it blotted out the sun. Izuku looked up. And up. And up. The 0-pointer. It was colossal. It was taller than the skyscrapers surrounding it. Its green chassis was thick with armor plating. Its hand, the size of a bus, smashed into a building, sending debris raining down. Run! Someone screamed. The students broke. The logic of the exam dictated that this enemy was unbeatable. There were no points to be gained. Survival was the only metric. Get out of here! It's huge! The crowd stampeded past Izuku. Even Ida turned and ran, shouting for everyone to evacuate. Izuku stood still. His right side analyzed the threat. Target, 0-pointer. Size, 80 meters. Threat level, catastrophic. Probability of defeat, 0%. Recommended action, retreat immediately. His left side trembled with primal fear. Predator too big. We are prey. Hide. Run to the shadows. Both sides agreed. Run. Izuku turned. He prepared to engage his photon step and flee. He could be out of the zone in 3 seconds. Ow! A small, pained cry cut through the roaring of the robot and the screaming of the students. Izuku froze. His head snapped back. Through the dust and debris he saw her. The girl with the bob cut. Uraraka. She had tripped. A massive chunk of masonry from the destroyed building had fallen, pinning her leg to the asphalt. She was struggling to lift it, but it was too heavy. The 0-pointer was looming over her. Its massive treads were grinding the pavement, inching closer. It raised a metal fist, preparing to sweep the street clear. She looked up at the robot, her eyes wide with terror. She stopped screaming. She just stared at death. Run, the light said. She is one casualty. You have a future to secure. Run, the dark screamed. Survival is everything. But then the ember spoke. It wasn't a voice. It was a memory. You were the only one who acted. Izuku's body moved. He didn't use the photon step to run away. He used it to close the distance. He exploded forward, a streak of white light cutting through the dust. He arrived at Yui's student Uraraka's side in a heartbeat. Midoriya? She gasped, looking up. Don't move, he commanded. He looked at the rubble trapping her. He could lift it with gravity, but that would take focus, and the robot was descending now. He looked up at the 0-pointer. The fist was coming down. It was going to crush them both. Izuku turned to face the machine. Hey! He screamed. The robot didn't stop. It was a machine. It didn't care. Izuku planted his feet. He took a deep breath. I can't use light. It's too focused. I can't pierce that armor in time. I can't use one for all. My limbs will explode. He needed power. Raw stopping power. He needed the weight of the world. He needed the dark. Not just a little. All of it. Forgive me, Izuku whispered. He closed his eyes and tore down the mental wall holding back the abyss on his left side. His left eye snapped open, the violet iris expanding until it swallowed the white. The temperature in the street plummeted 30 degrees in a second. Frost instantly webbed across the asphalt, shattering the glass and nearby windows. Black mist poured off Izuku's body, thick and oily. It rose like a geyser. Gravity. Izuku roared, his voice distorted, layering 3 octaves deep. He thrust his left hand upward, fingers curled into a claw. Well, he didn't push the robot. He pulled the space inside it. A sphere of absolute darkness, the size of a car, materialized in the center of the 0-pointer's chest. Crunch. The sound was sickening. It sounded like a train being fed into a compactor. The massive robot groaned. Its armor plating buckled inward. The gravity well sucked everything toward that single point of singularity. The metal chest collapsed. The head was jerked downward, slamming into its own torso. The arm that was descending toward them was yanked off course, twisting and snapping like a twig. The robot began to fold in on itself. Sparks showered down like rain. The massive machine, moments ago a god of destruction, was being crushed into a ball of scrap by an invisible, titanic hand. Izuku gritted his teeth. Blood began to drip from his nose. The frost on his left arm was turning black, necrosis. The hunger was consuming him. Crush it. Crush it all. Break it. Die, Izuku hissed, a smile stretching his face that didn't reach his eyes. Die, die, die. Midoriya! Stop! Uraraka's voice broke through the haze. It stopped. It's dead. Izuku blinked. The violet light in his eye flickered. The gravity well dissipated. The 0-pointer, now a twisted, smoking sculpture of modern art, groaned one last time and tipped backward, crashing to the ground away from them. Silence fell over the street. Izuku stood panting. His left arm hung limp at his side, completely numb, encased in a layer of black ice. His breath came in white puffs. He turned slowly to look at Uraraka. For a moment, the transition wasn't complete. His face was still twisted in that primal, predator's snarl. His eyes were still void black. The shadows around him were writhing like snakes, reaching toward her as if she were the next meal. Uraraka flinched. She scrambled backward, her hands scraping the pavement. She looked more terrified of him than she had of the robot. Don't. she whispered. The look on her face shattered him. The adrenaline crashed. The darkness receded, fleeing back into its cage. The natural green of his eyes returned, swimming in tears. The frost cracked and fell from his arm, revealing skin that was bruised and red. Izuku's voice was small. Broken. I didn't mean. Time's up, the siren wailed. Izuku's knees gave out. He collapsed forward onto the pavement, the world spinning into gray. I saved her, he thought, as unconsciousness took him. But I think I scared her more. The aftermath. Make way! Make way for the old lady! Recovery girl bustled through the crowd of stunned students. She pushed past Ida, who was staring at the wreckage of the zero-pointer with his mouth open. She reached Izuku. He was conscious, but barely. He was shivering violently, his teeth chattering. Hypothermia and muscle tearing, recovery girl diagnosed instantly. You foolish boy. You used the localized singularity? You could have collapsed your own lungs. Is she okay? Izuku chattered, pointing a trembling hand toward Uraraka. Uraraka was sitting nearby, freed from the rubble by Ida. She was watching Izuku. She looked pale. She's fine, recovery girl snapped. She puckered her lips. Smooch. She kissed Izuku's forehead. A wave of warmth washed over him, accelerating his healing but draining his remaining stamina. The frostbite on his arm healed into pink, tender skin. Let's get you on a stretcher, recovery girl signaled the bots. As they lifted him, Izuku looked at Uraraka one last time. She met his gaze. She didn't smile. She looked confused. Wary. Izuku closed his eyes. I failed. I showed the monster. 1 week later, the Midoriya apartment was quiet. Izuku lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He was lifting a dumbbell with his right hand, counting mechanically. 501. 502. It had been a week of silence. He hadn't heard from Yae. He hadn't heard from All Might. He had texted All Might, but the reply had been brief. Wait for the letter. I am busy with matters. Izuku felt heavy. The exam kept replaying in his mind. The way the shadows had surged. The joy he had felt when the metal crunched. The look on Uraraka's face. I have 52 points, he reasoned. That's a decent score. But the judges, they saw me lose control. A hero who enjoys destruction is a liability. Izuku. His mother's voice came from the hallway. She sounded frantic. It's here. It came. She burst into his room, holding a white envelope with the red Yue wax seal. Izuku sat up. He put the dumbbell down. His hands shook as he took the envelope. I'll open it alone, Mom. Inko nodded, tears already streaming down her face. I'm so proud of you, no matter what. Even if it's a rejection, you were brave. She closed the door. Izuku sat at his desk. He stared at the seal. Light or dark? Hero or villain? He tore it open. A small metal disc fell out. It clattered onto the desk. BZZZT. A hologram projected into the air. I am here. As a projection, All Might appeared, zoomed in way too close to the camera. He wrestled with the framing for a second before backing up. He was in his Silver Age costume. Young Midoriya. It has been a week. I apologize for the radio silence. I have been working at UA, preparing for my new teaching position, Izuku gasped. Teaching? Yes. But let's get to the point. You are looking at this projection with fear in your eyes. You think you failed because of the ending, don't you? The hologram shifted. It showed a video clip. It was the control room footage. It showed Izuku crushing the zero-pointer. You destroyed the gimmick. But in doing so, you sacrificed your time, your safety, and your points to save a fellow examinee. All Might's voice dropped, becoming serious. You asked me if a monster could be a hero. Look at this. The video changed. It showed a clip from after the exam. It was Uraraka. She was standing in front of President Mike in the teacher's lounge. She looked desperate. Please! The video Uraraka pleaded. The boy with the curly hair and the scary quirk. He saved me. He looked really scary doing it, but he saved me. At least give him my points. He had 0 at the end because he stopped to help me. Please! Izuku felt tears prick his eyes. She wasn't scared of him. She was grateful. Quirks are tools, young Midoriya, All Might said gently. How they look doesn't matter. What matters is what they protect. The screen flashed with numbers. Combat points 52, rescue points 60, total 112, 60 rescue points. A massive score! The judges were terrified of your power, yes. Aizawa-kun gave you a 0 for control but 100 for guts. But the consensus was clear. All Might reached his hand toward the screen. You didn't just pass, Izuku. You demolished the curve. The text appeared in bold gold letters. Accepted, Class 1A. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the silence of his room. He looked at his hands. The right one was warm. The left one was cold. But for the first time in a week, they didn't feel like enemies. They felt like tools. He clenched them both into fists. I'm going, he whispered to the empty room. He wiped his eyes and smiled. A real smile, not a manic one. The equinox was beginning. And Class 1A had no idea what was coming. The UA high school uniform was a strange shade of gray. Izuku Midoriya stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting the red tie. He appreciated the irony of the color. Gray. It was the only color that fit him. Not quite black, not quite white. A compromise. He pulled on his gloves. They were new, a gift from All Might along with the uniform. They were made of a compression fabric weave. The right one was white with gold threading to dissipate heat. The left one black with silver lining to insulate against the creeping frost. Izuku? Are you ready? Inko's voice was tremulous from the hallway. Yeah, Mom, Izuku called back. He took a deep breath. Inside him, three forces existed in a delicate, terrifying orbit. The light was a hum in his right ear, a constant high-frequency sine wave. The dark was a heavy, fluid weight in his left side, like water sloshing in a tank. And in the center, buried deep in his gut, was one for all. It was silent. It felt like a heavy, golden anchor. Since ingesting the hair, a memory he was actively trying to repress, he hadn't felt a surge of power. No super strength, no lightning, just a feeling of density. All Might had said it was integrating, reinforcing his chassis so that when he did pull the trigger, he wouldn't shatter. I'm leaving. Be careful. Don't freeze anything. Don't burn anything. Make friends. Izuku smiled, a small, genuine thing. I'll try. Class 1A. The door to Class 1A was massive. It was designed, Izuku noted with his analytical mind, to accommodate students with gigantification quirks or mutation types. Right side analysis. Door height approximate 4 meters. Material. Reinforced steel core with wood veneer. Defensive capability high. He shook his head, dismissing the cold logic of the light. He needed to be human today. He needed to make a good impression. He slid the door open. Get your feet off the desk. The shouting hit him immediately. Ha! Bakugo was reclining in his seat, ankles crossed on the pristine surface. Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? Tenya Ida, the boy with the glasses from the exam, was chopping the air with his hand. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. It is disrespectful to the UA upperclassmen who use this desk. Semi? Bakugo sneered. So you're a stuck-up elite, huh? I'll enjoy crushing you. Crushing? You're truly awful. Do you really wish to be a hero? Izuku stepped into the room. The air pressure seemed to shift slightly, a side effect of his electromagnetic field when he was nervous. Bakugo's head snapped toward the door. The sneer fell off his face, replaced by a guarded, hostile glare. Deku. The room went quiet. Ida turned, adjusting his glasses. Ah. You. Ida marched over. I am Tenya Ida. I must apologize for my behavior during the entrance exam. Your perception of the exam's true nature, the rescue points, was superior to mine. I misjudged you. Oh, no, Izuku waved his hands. I didn't really figure it out. I just reacted. You're the boy who smashed the 0-pointer. A bubbly voice came from behind him. Ochako Uraraka appeared, beaming. I was looking for you. You passed. That punch, well, not a punch, that crush thing, was amazing. Are you okay? Your arm looked like a popsicle. Izuku felt the heat rising in his cheeks. I'm fine. Recovery girl fixed me up. I was so worried, she admitted, her smile faltering slightly. You looked really scary for a second there. Like a different person, Izuku winced. Yeah. That happens. I have trouble with the settings. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. Everyone looked down. A yellow sleeping bag was lying in the doorway like a giant caterpillar. A face peered out, unshaven, tired, with bloodshot eyes. This is the hero course, the man said, standing up and shedding the sleeping bag in one fluid motion. He wore all black and a strange, gray scarf around his neck. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. He walked to the podium. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Homeroom teacher? The class gasped. Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a blue gym uniform. Put these on. Meet me on the P grounds, the locker room. The boys' locker room was filled with the sound of rustling fabric and nervous chatter. Man, that teacher looks intense, a boy with red spiky hair said, pulling his shirt off. I'm Eijiro Kurishima. Nice to meet you guys. Genki Kaminari, a blond boy with a black streak, replied. Did you see his eyes? Dead fish eyes. Totally creepy. Izuku quietly removed his shirt. He turned toward his locker, trying to be discreet. Whoa, dude. The room went silent. Izuku froze. He knew what they were looking at. His torso was a map of his quirk's toe. On his right shoulder and ribs, the skin was slightly discolored, lighter than the rest, with faint, spiderwebbing scars from heat stress, the sunburns that never quite healed. But his left side was worse. His left arm, shoulder, and part of his chest were marked with the jagged, fern-like patterns of Lichtenberg figures, but dark and purple, deep tissue frostbite scars from where the darkness had bitten back. The skin looked toughened, almost like leather in places. Kurishima stepped closer, his eyes wide. Those are some gnarly scars, Midoriya. You get those in fights? Izuku pulled his gym shirt on quickly. No. Just training. My quirk isn't very friendly to my body. A double-edged sword, a deep voice said from the corner. Fumikage Tokoyami stood there, his bird head tilted. He wasn't looking at the scars with pity or shock. He was looking with recognition. To harbor a beast within is a heavy burden, Tokoyami said cryptically. The darkness is not easily tamed. Izuku looked at him. He saw the way Tokoyami held himself, careful, contained. You too? Izuku asked softly. Tokoyami nodded once. Dark Shadow is willful. We should converse later. It is a rare banquet of darkness we share. Right, Izuku smiled nervously. Banquet. Hey! Less talking, more changing. Ida chopped the air. We must not be late. The P grounds. The sun was high in the sky. Izuku felt his right side humming, drinking in the photons. It made him feel alert, sharp, and detached. He had to mentally dial it back to keep from bleaching his emotions. A quirk apprehension test? The class shouted in unison. What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his voice bored. UA's selling point is freedom of style. That applies to the teachers as well. He held up a softball. Softball throw, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, upper body training, seated toe touch, and sit-ups. You did these in middle school without quirks. The country is still pretending that everyone is created equal. It's irrational. He tossed the ball to Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your record for the softball throw in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Anything goes, as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at Izuku for a split second before winding up. Die! Boom! A massive explosion propelled the ball into the sky. Die! Izuku muttered. Aizawa held up his device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! 705? That looks like fun. We can use our quirks as much as we want. Awesome! The air around Aizawa changed. The boredom vanished, replaced by a sharp, predatory intent. Fun? He repeated. You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be all fun and games? He lowered the device. His hair seemed to float slightly. Right. The one with the lowest score across all 8 events will be judged as having 0 potential, and will be expelled. Yeah? Expelled? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa said coldly. Villain attacks aren't fair. It is our job to combat that unfairness. If you're here to make friends and play hero, go home. Izuku swallowed hard. The logic of his light side kicked in. Probability of expulsion high? Aizawa Shota. Erasure hero, Eraserhead. Known for expelling entire classes. He is not bluffing. Strategy. Izuku looked at his hands. I cannot use one for all. It's not ready. I have to rely on twilight. But I have to balance it. If I go too dark, I lose control. If I go too light, I pass out from heatstroke. Let's get started. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku was paired with Bakugo. Don't get in my way, Deku, Bakugo hissed as they took their marks. I'm going to leave you in the dust. On your marks. Get set. Gunshot. Bakugo launched himself backward with explosions. Blast rush turbo. Izuku didn't run. He stomped. Right side, photon step. He channeled the solar energy he had been absorbing. He compressed it into the soles of his feet and released it in short, violent bursts. Flash. 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 He moved in a staccato rhythm, appearing as a strobe light across the track. He wasn't flying. He was dashing on hard light platforms that shattered instantly after use. 3.04 seconds. The robot announced for Izuku. 4.13 seconds. For Bakugo. Izuku skidded to a halt, smoke rising from his shoes. He had beaten Bakugo. Bakugo stood at the finish line, staring at the time. His hands were shaking. Izuku didn't look at him. He was rubbing his eyes. The world looked a little too sharp. The bleaching was starting. Emotion check, 80%. Logic, 120%. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, marking his clipboard. High mobility. Relies on external light sources for efficiency. Volatile. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the dynamometer. Next to him, a large boy with multiple arms, Shoji, squeezed his device until it beeped. 540 kilograms. Whoa! The class marveled. Izuku looked at the device. Light creates constructs, but dark creates pressure. He closed his eyes. He tapped into the left side. Gravity. He didn't squeeze with his muscles. He wrapped the device in a localized gravity field. The shadows around his hand deepened, turning into small, black tendrils that coiled around the plastic. Squeeze. The device didn't just beep. It crunched. The metal handle warped. The digital display cracked. Error, the machine beeped. Then 800 kilograms. Izuku released it quickly. The shadows vanished. He felt a sudden spike of annoyance at the machine. Stupid plastic. Weak. He shook his head, pushing the aggression down. Did his shadow just eat the handle? Kaminari whispered to Mineta. Mineta was trembling. I'm not going near him. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku stepped to the line. Light provides propulsion. Dark provides lift. He combined them. A small burst of gravity to lighten his own mass, followed by a photon blast from his heels. He cleared the sandbox entirely. Test 4, repeated side steps. This was harder. It required stamina. Izuku used hard light constructs to create extra footing in the air, allowing him to bounce back and forth faster than normal gravity would allow. He scored high, but he was sweating profusely. His right side was burning up. He needed water. The assessment so far, Izuku was doing well. Objectively, he was in the top 3. But Aizawa wasn't looking at the numbers. He was looking at the boy. Every time Izuku used his light, his face went slack. His eyes became golden discs, unblinking and eerie. He moved like a robot. Every time he used his dark, his posture changed. He hunched. His fingers curled into claws. His grin became a little too wide, a little too sharp. He's unstable, Aizawa thought. He's oscillating between apathy and sadism. And he hasn't even used a big move yet. Test 5, ball throw. Uraraka stepped up. She touched the ball. It floated. She threw it. Infinity, the machine read. Infinity? The class cheered. That's insane. Good luck beating that, Midoriya, Siro said, patting him on the back. Izuku walked into the circle. This was the test that mattered. Distance. Pure power. He held the ball. If I use light, I can turn it into a railgun projectile. But the heat backlash might knock me out. If I use dark, I can launch it with a gravity slingshot. But if I slip, I might crush the ball, or the person standing downrange. He looked at Aizawa. The teacher was watching him like a hawk. He wants to see my potential. He wants to see the equinox. Izuku took a deep breath. He decided to go big. He planted his feet. He raised his left hand. Darkness. He poured the energy in. The shadows on the field rushed toward him. The sun seemed to dim. A vortex of violet energy formed in his palm, swirling around the ball. The air grew heavy, hard to breathe. The hunger rose. Throw it. Throw it through the building. Show them who is strongest. Obliterate. Izuku's voice distorted. He winded up, his arm turning completely black. Suddenly, the power vanished. The shadows evaporated. The cold was replaced by the mundane warmth of the afternoon. The vortex died. Izuku stumbled forward, his momentum unchecked but the power gone. The ball rolled out of his hand and plopped onto the grass. 4 meters. Huh! Izuku blinked. The red hue of aggression faded from his vision. What? Where did it go? He looked up. Aizawa was standing there. His hair was floating straight up. His scarf was floating. And his eyes were glowing a piercing red. I erased your quirk. The class gasped. Erase her head. Midoriya realized. The erasure hero. Aizawa walked toward him. He didn't look impressed. He looked angry. That entrance exam, Aizawa said, his voice low. I saw the footage. You saved the girl, yes. But you completely lost control of your emotional state. You turned into a berserker. Aizawa stopped a foot away from Izuku. He leaned in. You have a powerful quirk. A quirk that could easily kill. You have the power of a star in one hand and a black hole in the other. And yet you handle them with the grace of a toddler with a loaded shotgun. Aizawa's scarf shot out, wrapping around Izuku's waist and pulling him closer. If you had thrown that ball with that level of unrestrained gravity, do you know what would have happened to your arm? Or to the students standing behind the fence if the gravity well collapsed? Izuku trembled. You would have become a liability. Aizawa cut him off. There is nothing more tragic than a hero who cannot save others because he is too busy trying not to destroy himself. Aizawa blinked. His hair fell. The red glow faded. I've returned your quirk. He turned around and walked back to the line. You have 2 tries left. Hurry up and get it over with. Izuku stood in the circle. His heart was pounding. He's right. I nearly lost it again. The dark side gets excited when I try to use max power. He looked at his hands. I can't use 100% darkness. It takes over. I can't use 100% light. It shuts me down, and one for all isn't ready. He needed a third option. He needed finesse. Think, Izuku. Think. All Might said to weave them. Don't mix. Weave. He picked up the ball. He closed his eyes. Right side, focus. Precision. Timing. Left side, structure. Tension. Grip. He opened his eyes. They were mismatched again, 1 gold, 1 violet. He wound up. Instead of engulfing his arm in shadow, he created a single, thin whip of darkness from his index finger. He wrapped it around the ball. He began the throwing motion. As his arm came forward, he didn't release the ball with his hand. He kept holding the whip. The ball swung out on the tether, gaining centrifugal force. Now, at the apex of the swing, just as the ball was about to snap the tether, he fired his right side, not a laser. A pulse. He detonated a small, concentrated explosion of hard light right at the base of the ball, propelling it forward while simultaneously snapping the shadow whip. Crack boom. The sound was like a whip breaking the sound barrier. The ball shot into the sky. It left a trail of black smoke and glittering light particles. It pierced the clouds. Izuku stood there, his arms smoking. His index finger was purple, bruised from the shadow whip's tension, but not broken. He panted, looking at Aizawa. I didn't lose control. I used the dark to hold it, and the light to push it. Beep. Aizawa looked at the device. A small smirk touched his lips, quickly hidden. 709.6 meters. The class erupted. He beat Bakugo. That sound was crazy. Izuku clutched his bruised finger. He looked at Aizawa, his eyes watery but defiant. I'm still in the gray, sensei, Izuku rasped. But I'm in control. Aizawa stared at him for a long moment. Oh, okay, Aizawa grunted. Get back in line. The aftermath. Izuku walked back to the group. He felt dizzy. DKU. The roar was animalistic. Bakugo was charging. Explosions popped in his palms. His face was twisted in pure, unadulterated rage. You bastard! Tell me how you did that. Since when do you have that kind of power? He was fast. He was going to reach Izuku in a second. Izuku flinched. He didn't have time to dodge. Protect, the darkness whispered. Before Izuku could consciously react, his shadow, the actual cast shadow on the ground, surged up. It formed a jagged wall of spikes between him and Bakugo. At the same time, Aizawa's scarf shot out. It wrapped around Bakugo, restraining his arms. The explosions died instantly. Gah! What the hell is this cloth? Bakugo struggled. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa muttered. Geez, don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. He glared at Bakugo. Stand down. Unless you want to be expelled right now. Bakugo stopped struggling. He breathed heavily, glaring at Izuku through the wall of shadow spikes. We're not done, Bakugo mouthed. Aizawa released him. And Midoriya. Izuku looked up. The shadow wall melted back into the ground. Control your shadow. It reacted before you did. That's dangerous. Yes, sir, Izuku swallowed. As the tension diffused, a dark figure stepped up to Izuku. A shadow that moves on its own to protect its master, Tokoyami said, his eyes gleaming with interest. Dark Shadow is intrigued. A black, bird-like monster emerged from Tokoyami's stomach. He's got good taste. That wall was spiky. Izuku blinked. Then he smiled. It just reacted. Does yours do that? Constantly, Tokoyami sighed. Especially at night. It is an unruly companion. I think mine is less of a companion and more of a mood ring, Izuku admitted. But it hates being yelled at. A kindred spirit, Tokoyami nodded. We shall train together. Izuku felt a weight lift off his chest. He had a friend. A weird goth, bird-headed friend, but a friend who understood the darkness. The results. The sun was setting. The students gathered around the hologram display. Okay, here are the results, Aizawa said. By the way, the expulsion thing was a lie. What? The class screamed. It was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits, Aizawa said with a creepy grin. I knew it all along. Yaoyorozu clapped her hands. That was a lie, dark-haired Siro whispered. Look at his eyes. He would have done it. Izuku looked at the board. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 4. Tenya Ida. 5. Izuku Midoriya. He was 5th. High up. His physical scores were average, but his quirk scores, the dash, the grip, the jump, the throw, were top tier. Midoriya, Aizawa called out. Izuku froze. Yes, sir. Aizawa handed him a slip of paper. Go to the nurse's office to get that finger looked at. And? Aizawa leaned in close. Don't think you're off the hook. I saw the shadow act on its own. I saw the bleaching in your eyes. You're not expelled, but you are on probationary watch. Izuku gulped. Watch? I'll be monitoring your mental state closely. If I see you slipping, if I see the light take your empathy or the dark take your sanity, I will remove you from this course myself. Do you understand? Izuku looked at the tired man. He saw the genuine concern hidden behind the threat. I understand, Izuku said firmly. I won't slip. Good. Dismissed. Leaving Yue. Izuku walked out of the gate. He was exhausted. His finger was bandaged. His mind was fried. Deku! Izuku stopped. He didn't turn around. I'm not gonna ask how you did it. Bakugo's voice was low, coming from behind him. But don't think this changes anything. You're still a pebble. I'm still gonna be number one. Izuku turned. Bakugo was standing there, hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. I'm not a pebble anymore, Kaken, Izuku said quietly. He raised his right hand, letting a faint glimmer of light dance on his fingertips. Then he raised his left, letting a small wisp of shadow curl around his wrist. I'm the wall you have to climb. Bakugo looked up. His eyes widened slightly. Then he scoffed. Whatever. Just don't die before I kill you. Bakugo walked away, slouching into the sunset. Izuku watched him go. He touched his chest, feeling the warm, dormant ember of one for all. I survived day one, he thought. Only 3 years to go. As he walked toward the station, a car pulled up. The window rolled down. Midoriya? It was Todoroki. The boy with the burn scar and the half-white, half-red hair. He had come in second place. Hi, Izuku said. Todoroki stared at him with mismatched eyes, gray and turquoise. Your quirk, Todoroki said flatly. Light and dark. It creates a lot of pressure on your body, doesn't it? Yeah, Izuku nodded. It's hard to balance. Todoroki looked at his own hand. I see. We have similar circumstances. The window rolled up. The car drove away. Izuku stood on the sidewalk, confused. Similar circumstances? He shook his head and walked toward the train. The sun dipped below the horizon, and for a moment, the world was perfectly gray. Izuku smiled. It was his time of day.